The room was designed to make everyone inside it feel calm, rational, and slightly afraid of making a mistake. Its walls were a soft, non-reflective gray, its lighting carefully tuned to the spectrum most comfortable for the species seated around the central table. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and cooled metal. On one side of the table, a hollow surface glowed with suspended icons, each one a frozen moment from what the Directorate now referred to as the HESOT-3 incident. On the other side sat a handful of senior officials who had spent most of their careers believing that humans, while interesting, were still manageable. Today, that belief was under formal review. "Begin recording," said Director Val, voice as smooth and neutral as the room itself. A soft tone acknowledged the command. Incident Review Board, Session 1, Subject: Unauthorized escalation during human specimen acquisition, Catalog Reference Terra 61, Event Code HESOT-3. Viel's eyes, a vertical band of shifting color, moved across the table. All present confirm identity for the record. Operations Coordinator Thalen, said the first, with a slight incline of the head. Field Acquisition and Vector Control. Containment Supervisor Irix, said the second, hands folded a little too tightly. Biological Handling and Holding Protocols. Security Marshal Wren, said the third, armored carapace dull with stress polish. Internal Response and Asset Protection. And I, Val said, am Director Val, Oversight and Risk Mitigation. We will determine today whether this program continues in its present form. There was a faint ripple of discomfort at that. Programs did not usually reach the stage where Viel personally attended the reviews. Viel gestured and the central hollow expanded, showing a rotating wireframe of a human figure. Height, mass, biometrics, previous catalog tags, Homo sapiens, uplift class 3, planetary origin Terra. We will proceed chronologically, Viel said. Coordinator Thalen, describe the initial acquisition. Thalen's eyes flickered as he pulled up his own notes. The operation was scheduled as a routine sample retrieval, he said. Our remit was to obtain a small group of high-stress human combatants for extended physiological study. The war records indicated that such individuals exhibited unusual durability under duress. Command authorized a limited acquisition from an active conflict zone to minimize environmental disruption. And you selected, Viel said, HESOT-3. Yes, Thalen replied. Human Expeditionary Special Operations Team 3, forward deployed in a contested region on an exoplanet designated by them as Ridgefall. Local gravity within acceptable variance, atmosphere compatible, minimal interference with our transport envelope. The hollow shifted. Now the room showed a dark landscape, ground rough and broken, vegetation low and sparse under a pale sky. A human dropship cut across the frame, heat signatures flaring along its engines as it bled off speed. This is from our high-orbit observation platform, Thalen said. Insertion sequence local cycle minus 43 minutes relative to acquisition. The vehicle flared, hovered, then dropped toward a rocky outcrop. Figures emerged into the haze. They moved fast, low, weapons up, arcs of fire and fields of view overlapping without apparent conscious effort. Their armor was matte, their movements precise. Team designation, HESOT-3, Thalen continued. 12 operators, the central node of command is here. He highlighted one figure. Captain Callum Harris, human rank, O3 equivalent, call sign in unit records, 2 brain cells. Viel's eyes flickered. Clarify the meaning of that designation. Thalen hesitated. It is a cultural reference, internal humor. Their unit describes him as operating with only 2 brain cells, one allocated to violence and one to problem solving. It is not meant to indicate deficiency. It is meant to indicate efficiency under stress. They mock their commander, Eirik said softly. And this is considered respectful? Among them, yes, Thalen said. They mock those they trust to function under pressure. The holo zoomed closer. Harris moved through the landing zone like he had done it 1,000 times. He paused only to gesture once, and the entire team shifted formation, adjusting to unseen factors. Note the lack of verbal traffic, Thalen added. They communicate primarily with gestures, short code phrases, and pre-established patterns. Their internal cohesion index is extremely high. You knew all this, Vale said. Why was a special operations unit considered suitable for acquisition? Because previous acquisitions had been manageable, Thalen said. Prior conflict-era humans broke under controlled stimuli. Their command structures degraded when leadership was removed. We assessed that their modern equivalents would behave similarly with higher value data. Did you consider that they had fought in more wars since then? Wren asked. Thalen's mouth tightened. We accounted for improved armor, weapons, communications. We did not adequately model cognitive adaptation. You did not account for what repeated existential conflict does to a species, Vale said. Thalen looked down. No, Director, we did not. The holo advanced. HESOT-3 moved away from the dropship, fanning out to secure a perimeter around a crashed object. Not alien, but human. A destroyed sensor drone, blackened hull, still venting heat. The team set up a temporary camp, posted sentries. They operated as if abduction by extraterrestrial agencies was not on their list of plausible threats. This is the point of selection, Thalen said. Based on position, exposure, and human command concentration, we initiated the envelope. The holo froze on Harris, head slightly turned, as if he had heard something just outside the sensor range. We triggered displacement, Thalen said. Localized field, 10-meter radius. Objective, transfer all 12 operators to Holding Bay 12, Section 3 for immediate sedation and cataloging. The holo resumed. Space twisted around the team, the image distorting like it had been wrapped around an invisible sphere. HESOT-3 vanished. The holo switched to a different view. A sterile chamber, bright and compartmentalized, 3 separate pods with transparent barriers, each containing human shapes on raised platforms. Containment Supervisor Eirik's, Vale said. Explained the initial handling. Eirik's membrane flickered a shade darker. Standard protocol, he said. Upon arrival, we initiated atmospheric equalization, harness lockdown, and chemical sedation through the platform interface. Subjects were restrained at 4 limbs and torso, cranial stabilizers engaged. Sedative was calibrated to human baseline physiology with combat stress adjustment factor. And you believed that would suffice, Wren said. It has always sufficed, Eirik snapped, then caught himself. It has sufficed in the past. Vile gestured, and the holo zoomed in on one of the platforms. Harris lay on his back, armor removed, underlayer still in place. Restraints locked his wrists, upper arms, ankles, and chest. A soft field shimmered just above his skin, the glow of an induced neural suppression mesh. Lines of alien script scrolled along a display. Chemload delivered 83% of calculated dose. Sedation outcome? Vale asked. Eirik's jaw worked once. Incomplete, he admitted. Vitals indicated partial suppression only. Subject remained conscious at low level. We increased the dose by 12%, which exceeded the recommended safety margin, Vale said. For a long-term study, yes, Eirik's replied. For an initial restraint phase, we calculated the risk acceptable. The holo replayed the footage in real time now. Harris blinked slowly, eyes tracking the room. He did not thrash against the restraints. He flexed once as if feeling them, then stopped. His breathing deepened, steadied. He scanned left then right, cataloging details. He looked more bored than terrified. "Note the lack of panic response," Vial said. "Explain this." "We believed at the time that the sedative had numbed higher emotional centers," Eirik said. "In retrospect, it appears to be a conditioned behavioral pattern. Human special operations personnel are trained to suppress outward manifestations of fear." "They are trained," Wren said, "to appear compliant when they are not." Eirik exhaled. "Yes." The recording continued. Another human, smaller frame, still in partial armor, lay on the platform 2 stations away, similarly restrained. Harris's eyes flicked toward them. He didn't speak at first. His jaw moved slightly like he was working a dry mouth. Then, softly, he said, "Miller, you awake?" The room's translation system rendered his words into the board's auditory band. The other man swallowed. "Yes, sir. Copy." "Don't fight the restraints yet," Harris said. "You're going to want to. Don't." "Yes, sir." "Count your breaths," Harris said. "Keep your head clear. Take inventory." He didn't ask where they were. He didn't ask who had taken them. He looked at the ceiling, tracking movement in the lighting panels, counting in a language the system flagged but didn't fully decode. "He is giving instructions," Vial said, "under sedation, while restrained." "Yes," Eirik said quietly. "He is establishing a protocol for his subordinates, even here." A technician entered the frame, a slender figure with bioharness and diagnostic rig. They approached Harris's platform, checked the restraint status, adjusted the sedative dosage. Harris watched them without moving his head. His gaze tracked every motion. "Did the technician recognize the awareness?" Vial asked. "They reported increased ocular tracking," Eirik said. "They interpreted it as residual neural activity without functional coherence." "Because that is what happened before," Wren said, "in previous acquisitions." "Yes," Eirik said. "We expected earlier behavior patterns." The hollow overlay now showed graphs. "This is where we missed the divergence," Thalen added. Older combatant samples exhibited high initial panic, followed by collapse. This one skipped the panic. He went straight to controlled processing. Vial's voice stayed neutral. "Proceed." The scene shifted. Timestamp plus 19 standard minutes from arrival. Harris lay still. His eyes were closed now, but his breathing remained measured. In the adjacent pod, another human, designation Ortiz, tested their restraints in tiny increments, pushing just to the point where the tension increased, then stopping. "Micro-testing of restraint tolerances," Wren noted. "They are mapping the limits." "Yes," Eirik said tightly. "We did not recognize the pattern until later." "Why not?" Vial asked. "Because they spaced it out," Eirik said. "One test every several dozen breaths, no sudden movement. They never triggered the high alert motion threshold." "You set those thresholds for panicked animals," Wren said. "Not coordinated soldiers." "Correct," Eirik said, unable to argue. Audio resumed. Harris spoke again, voice hoarse but controlled. "Ortiz." "Here, sir." "You still got full controls over your fingers." A pause. "Some. Tingling. Not great." "Good enough," Harris said. "Don't try to break anything. Just feel. We're going to wait." "For what?" Ortiz asked. Harris's lips twitched, almost amused. "For them to get lazy." The phrase puzzled the board for a moment. "Clarify," Vial said. "He anticipates procedural decay," Wren said slowly. "He expects us to make a mistake." "They design their tactics around the assumption that enemies make mistakes," Thalen added. It is a core part of their doctrine. The Hollow jumped ahead. Timestamp plus 47 minutes. The acquisition had been deemed stable. Extra personnel had left the holding sector. Ambient alert level was downgraded. A maintenance drone entered Harris's pod to adjust the harness field emitter at his left wrist. For 3 full seconds, the restraint tension dropped by 18%. Harris's hand flexed once, fingers curling, then relaxing, as if the movement were involuntary. The drone completed its work and withdrew. "Did you see that when it happened?" Vial asked. Irix's jaw tightened. "No, we saw it during post-incident analysis." "And he?" "He felt it," Irix said bitterly. "He stored it." The footage continued. Plus 84 minutes. A guard rotation. 2 new security personnel entered the corridor. One carried a pulse baton clipped to their harness at a slightly off-regulation angle. The other had their sidearm holstered, restraint field slaved to their biometric signature. The board watched in silence. The door seals cycled. The shift exchanged a brief, casual remark about the quiet specimens and how this rotation would be easier than the last assignment involving a predatory water species. "They were not prepared for this class of human," Wren said. "No," Irix said. They had read the archive briefs from earlier eras. Those humans screamed. These ones did not. The Hollow jumped forward again. Plus 91 minutes. Harris's heart rate increased, slightly but steadily. Not panic. Preparation. "What triggered the change?" Val asked. "We believe he had enough data," Thalen said. He had mapped the pattern of patrols, maintenance cycles, restraint tolerances. He realized this was as calm as our containment would get. "So he acted," Wren murmured. The board watched the break point in slowed time. A technician re-entered the pod, this time to affix additional neural monitoring apparatus. They adjusted the head brace, reducing the restraint field around Harris's neck by a narrow margin. At the same time, the guard with the off-angle baton shifted position, turning slightly away from the pod to address a query from the other guard. 2 points of vulnerability appeared in the same small window of time. Harris moved. Even slowed down, the speed was unsettling. 1 second he was limp, the next his left arm snapped upward, wrist twisting against the restraint, exploiting the earlier 18% slack. The restraint field stretched to its tolerance limit. Bone and tendon strained. Pain spikes ran up his nervous system, registered plainly on the monitor. He ignored them. His hand slipped free. "With what cost?" Val asked. "Microfractures in the carpal bones," Irix said. "Ligament damage." He accepted significant harm to achieve partial freedom. "He deprioritized bodily integrity," Wren said. "He treated his own bones as expendable material." "Yes," Irix said quietly. Harris's hand closed around the passing maintenance drone, fingers digging into composite housing. He snapped off a section with a sharp twist, and in the same motion flung it toward the guard's off-angle baton. The fragment struck the baton's base, jolting it. The energy field flickered and briefly backfed into the guard's harness. They spasmed, falling sideways into the control panel. The platform restraint circuits registered a transient overload and cycled. For a fraction of a second, just a fraction, the restraint fields on 3 adjacent platforms dropped below the minimum safe threshold. Harris didn't waste it. His body surged upward, shoulder tearing against the still active right arm restraint. He rolled with the pain, not against it, using the locked arm as a pivot. His free hand slammed into the chest of the nearest technician, striking at a spot that human combat training identified as structurally vulnerable. The technician flew backward, colliding with the barrier. The second human, Ortiz, twisted, using the same brief slack to yank one arm free, then a leg. They moved like they had rehearsed this exact maneuver, though they never could have. The board watched in silence as two partially restrained, injured humans turned a clinic into a battlefield in less than 3 heartbeats. "Pause," Vale said. The hollow froze with Harris mid-motion, mouth open in a wordless exhale. How much time elapsed between his initial movement and the first guard incapacitation? "0.4 seconds, Irix said, and total time until control of the pod shifted from our personnel to the humans? 2.6 seconds, Irix answered. We did not understand at the time that this is normal for them. They train for this speed. You do not train for 0.4 seconds, Ren said. You become it. The hollow resumed. Harris twisted his body, using momentum and the remaining restraints as anchor points, kicking off the platform. He slammed into the door as it tried to reseal, jamming a severed restraint bracket into the mechanism. The door stuck open, half-closed. Alarms finally escalated to full. The translation system rendered the human's next words, ragged but clear. Ortiz, Miller up! Move now! The other humans responded instantly, bodies waking up like machines cycling into combat mode. 2 brain cells or not, when Harris spoke, they moved. The board watched as the 3 of them spilled into the corridor, partially restrained, bleeding but coordinated. One grabbed the fallen guard's weapon, fumbling only briefly with unfamiliar controls before figuring out where the activation stud was by touch and instinct. They fired once, twice, stunning the second guard before he could fully draw his sidearm. Harris yanked a panel off the wall with his free hand, ignoring the strain on already damaged joints, and ripped open the conduit behind it. The lights flickered as arcs of energy snapped through the air. What is he doing there? Vale asked. At that moment? He's mapping our infrastructure, Thalen said quietly. They are trained to read hostile architecture, doors, power, vents. Everything is either cover, a route, or a weapon. Harris peered into the conduit, eyes narrowing. He jabbed at a cluster of lines, noted the reaction, then smiled, a small, dangerous expression. Found your lights, he said, and your air. He should not have been able to make that inference, Irix protested. Our infrastructure is not analogous to human. He does not need to understand it philosophically, Ren interrupted. He only needs to know what happens when he pulls that. On the recording, Harris looked back down the corridor where other pods held the rest of his team. Not yet, he muttered. He sealed the panel as best he could with one damaged hand. We move first, break later. What followed over the next 4 minutes and 17 seconds was replayed to the board from 6 angles, corridor cams, drone feeds, and the weapon vision log from the recovered guard's sidearm. It looked less like an escape attempt and more like a micro-scale military operation. Harris moved first, always, his partially freed body using walls, floor, and ceiling with equal familiarity. He treated low gravity and alien architecture as just another set of variables. His people followed him not with blind panic, but with drilled coordination. They cleared corners. They stacked on doors. They divided sectors of fire in a language of hand signs and short, clipped words. They improvised tools out of equipment racks, restraint harnesses, and drone carcasses. Every time an alien appeared at the end of a corridor, a human weapon shifted fractionally and the threat went down. Not killed. Incapacitated. Breathing, but unconscious. You note that, Vial said quietly. Non-lethal force prioritized. Yes, Ren said. They core out infrastructure. They leave personnel alive where possible. It is not mercy. It is prioritization. Explain. They conserve ammunition. They avoid escalating the engagement to extermination, Ren said. If they start killing, we retaliate in kind. If they simply break us and leave, we are more likely to retreat than burn the facility around them. Vial regarded him for a moment. You are suggesting he understands escalation dynamics. I am suggesting, Ren said, that he has spent his life in wars where escalation kills everyone. The Hollow jumped ahead again. The humans had reached a junction where containment sectors met the primary transit trunk. This was where security had finally responded with more than 2 guards and a technician. Response time, Vile said. From first alarm to full security deployment? 4 minutes, 17 seconds, Ren said. In our previous metrics, an acceptable window. And in this one? An eternity, Ren admitted. The response team arrived with full armor, heavy weapons, and automated support drones. Shields unfolded. Barrier fields snapped up. Humans slid behind the curve of the corridor, pinned by incoming fire that ionized the air, leaving trails of luminous particles. Harris flattened against the wall, one arm still mostly useless, eyes darting over every visible detail. This is where you expected them to fail, Vale said. Yes, Ren replied. At this point, every other subject group had been contained or destroyed. The board watched Harris gesture to his team, fingers flicking through a complex series of signs. The translator struggled with the hand code, but the audio log provided words. We're not winning a straight exchange, he said softly. They've got armor and better guns, so we stop playing straight. What does that mean? Irix asked. It means, Ren said, that he is about to change the rules without telling us. On the recording, Harris pointed back down the corridor toward the earlier panel he had exposed, then at the ceiling vents. Ortiz comms with me, he muttered. Miller, you're on distraction. Make them think we're dumb. Copy, dumb it is, Miller said. Miller leaned out around the corner and fired wildly, deliberately inaccurate shots that scorched the barrier fields and walls without hitting a single target. The security team interpreted this as panicked behavior, a subject with unfamiliarity toward their weapons. They advanced. Miller kept firing, shouting incoherent threats, most of which translated into nonsense. Behind them, Harris and 2 others moved back down the auxiliary corridor, pried the panel open again, and severed the specific bundle of conduits he had marked earlier. The lights went out. The air changed. Pressure equalization vents snapped open where they should not have. Security's barrier fields sputtered, switching to fail-safe low-power mode. In the darkness, Harris whispered, "Now," and the humans moved. They fought not toward the exit. That would have been expected. They fought sideways, into maintenance shafts and vertical access tubes that security considered too constrained for significant maneuver. They considered them inconvenient. The humans considered them perfect. This was the point, Ren said slowly, where I realized we were not dealing with an unusual specimen. We were dealing with an ecosystem of behavior. They all knew how to do this. Your meaning? Vile asked. You can't grow a team like that with one war, Ren said. It takes generations of conflict to make this normal. The Hollow showed Harris squeezing his injured body through a narrow maintenance shaft, using one good hand and both legs, teeth clenched. Behind him, another operator pushed a small device ahead, a human sensor beacon, modified on the fly to spike local emissions in a way human ships could detect. Harris had ripped it off his own suit earlier, stripped the casing with his teeth, and rewired it with stolen alien components. Now he wedged it into the airflow and whispered, "If anyone's listening, follow the noise, not the transponder." Thalen shifted uneasily. We did not detect the emission pattern at the time, he said. Our filters flagged it as environmental interference. But their ships, Vale said, would not have. No, Thalen admitted. Their doctrine encourages listening for anomalies. We normalize them away. The board watched as security finally forced the humans into a sealed section by selectively cycling doors around them. Gas flooded the compartment, a dense, shimmering mist designed to numb and immobilize almost any carbon-based nervous system. The humans coughed, slowed, dropped to their knees. Harris stayed upright longer than he should have, according to the models. His vitals pushed into red zone stress, then flattened into something controlled, almost meditative. He sank down last, back against a bulkhead, half standing, even unconscious. That was where we believed the incident ended, Eirik said. We recovered, resecured, and reinforced containment. No fatalities among our staff, minor injuries only. No humans escaped the facility. Vial watched the frozen frame, Harris on the floor, eyes closed, hands still half curled like he might get up again at any second. But it did not end there, Vale said. Thalen brought up a new sequence, off-site orbital imagery. A human cruiser sliding out from behind Ridgefall's shadow, its drive plume bright and hard. Sensor booms extended, drones detached like a scatter of metallic insects. The beacon, Thalen said. They received it. Their tactical net rerouted a nearby vessel. This is an interception cruiser war grade. They did not hail us. They did not broadcast distress. They went silent. The holo zoomed in on the cruiser's hull. Weapon ports glowed faintly as systems came online. The ship adjusted its orbit minutely, aligning vector with the facility's hidden position. They began a search pattern, Thalen said. They did not look for life signs. They looked for the precise kind of interference their own devices generate when operating near our envelope. They assumed we were present, Vale said. Not guessed, Thalen replied. Assumed. They have seen our work before. They know the signatures. We thought we were operating in the cracks of their awareness. We were wrong. The board watched the cruiser's drones sweep the upper atmosphere, sending signals down into Ridgefall's sky. At first, the facility's location remained hidden. Then one of the probes changed course, homing in on a faint energy leak from the gas flooding system. They found your exhaust, Wren said. Yes, Thalen said grimly. We designed it to disperse efficiently. We did not design it to be invisible to paranoid, war-trained humans. The cruiser's orbit shifted again. A small object detached, burning hard toward the planet. Drop pod, Thalen said. One human, heavy armor. Another special operator, Vale said softly. Probably, Wren replied, or someone important enough to send alone. The pod screamed through the atmosphere, hit the ground kilometers from the facility, then disappeared from orbital view. Minutes later, internal facility sensors picked up distant vibrations. Something was moving through the rock, using a cut-and-melt pattern that did not match their own tools. They tunneled, Eirik said faintly, through bedrock, to reach us. No, Wren said, through bedrock to reach him. The board watched as their own schematics displayed a growing line of disruption, inching toward the holding sectors. How close did they get? Vial asked. Far enough, Thalen said. We received a single transmission, narrow beam, tight band, cutting straight through our jamming. He brought up the audio. It was in human language, translated into the board's hearing range. A calm voice, controlled but edged with something sharp. Harris, if you can hear this, we're burning every favor we've got to get you out. You hold. You keep breathing. They touch your people, we start removing theirs from the sky, one by one. You are not alone in here. The board was silent. Harris did not respond, Thalen said. He was unconscious at the time. But the message was not for him. It was for us, Vial said. Yes, Thalen replied. They wanted us to know that they were aware that recovery was not a hypothetical. What did we do? Vale asked. We initiated contingency protocol, Eirik said. We accelerated the decision loop. The options were 1. Retain specimens, and prepare for direct engagement with their cruiser. 2. Neutralize specimens and erase traces. 3. Return specimens and attempt to re-establish ambiguity. You chose, Vale said, option 3. Yes, Eirik said. We vented the anesthetic, stabilized them medically, and prepared for controlled release. We altered their immediate memories with imprint noise to degrade precise recall of our interior configuration. We returned them to the planet's surface at a location within plausible error margins of their last known position. You released a 12-member special operations team, Wren said, who had already demonstrated the ability to compromise a high-security facility in under 7 minutes. Yes, Eirik said, because retaining them would have required a war, and killing them would have started one. That is an assumption, Vial said. Thalen shook his head. No, Director, it is not. We intercepted their threat evaluation traffic. They treat the disappearance of units like HESOT-3 as strategic events. Their history with other polities shows that they respond to such events with disproportionate action. You refer, Vale said, to the siege of Ceto Gamma. And to the Broken Line Accords, Thalen added, and the incident they call the Black Barricade. We may not understand all their history, but we understand this much. When they believe that someone is harvesting their people, they do not respond with diplomacy. They respond with campaigns. Vale's gaze held on the hollow for a long time. In the recording, human medics clustered around the returned forms of HESOT-3, armor reattached, gear scrambled but intact. Harris woke first. He sat up slowly, wincing as his left hand flexed, then looked around at his team. Everyone's sound off, he said. Voices answered in a rough chorus, present, alive, hurting. He stood, swayed, steadied himself on a medic's shoulder. We were taken, he said. We were taken and they put us back. That means they're nervous. Good. We'll make them more nervous. Sir? Someone asked. Harris looked up toward the sky where nothing visible betrayed the presence of alien ships. They don't get to touch us for free, he said. Not anymore. The recording ended. The room's lighting seemed, for a brief moment, too bright. Vial folded his hands. We will now address the question before this board, they said. Does the Directorate continue human specimen acquisitions under current or modified protocols, or does it terminate this line of study entirely? Terminate, Eirik said immediately. We have enough data. We have more than enough. They are no longer a safe subject population. Modify, Thalen said. We underestimated them. That is on us. With improved containment, proper modeling, and respect for their adapted risk profile, we can... You want to abduct more of them, Wren said flatly. Yes, Thalen replied, because their response to existential threat may be precisely the data we need. No other known species behaves this way. We would be discarding a unique opportunity. And you, Security Marshal? Vial asked. Wren's eyes dimmed for a moment, a sign of fatigue. We can increase armament, he said. We can shorten response times. We can harden infrastructure. We can train our personnel not to underestimate human combatants. He paused. We cannot change what they are. Clarify, Vale said. Wren gestured toward the now dark hollow. We build systems that expect compliance, he said. Even hostile species, once contained, behave according to fear, confusion, or instinct. They do not coordinate. They do not plan beyond immediate escape. Humans do. You can put them in restraints, under gas, in darkness, disoriented, injured, and they will still run inbuilt algorithms for tactical problem solving. You believe this is innate? Vial asked. No, Wren said. I believe it is learned, but it is learned at the scale of their entire civilization. They have normalized crisis. It's part of their identity now. You can't contain that with stronger door locks. Your recommendation, Vale said. Wren took longer to answer than the others. We should classify human special operations units as strategic hazards, he said at last. Acquisition only with explicit war authorization. You are recommending we treat a 12-member team, Vile said slowly, as a strategic-level asset. We already do, Wren said. We just failed to realize they do as well. Vale was silent for a long time. The board waited. Outside, traffic moved through the station's transit corridors, unaware that a quiet argument about the future of an entire program was underway. Finally, Vielle spoke. We will suspend further non-consensual human acquisitions, they said. Thalen flinched. Director! This is not a philosophical concession to their autonomy, Vale continued. It is a practical response to a shift in risk calculus. The HESOT-3 incident demonstrates that our current protocols are obsolete. They also demonstrate that humans have moved into a behavioral regime where the probability of escalation exceeds the value of our data. We are just stopping? Thalen asked softly. After all these cycles? No, Vale said. We are reframing. They tapped the table. A new icon appeared in the hollow, human silhouette overlaid with hazard stripes. From this point forward, we will not categorize humans as livestock, test subjects, or passive observation targets. We will categorize them as a post-escalation species. Irix's membrane flickered. Meaning? Meaning, Vale said, that any interaction with them must be modeled under combat conditions even if it is nominally peaceful. Meaning we assume that every captured human is not merely an individual, but a vector through which their wider systems may respond. Meaning their operators, people like Captain Callum Harris, are not to be treated as samples. They are to be treated as emissaries of a hostile emergent doctrine. Doctrine, Thalen echoed. You believe there is a doctrine behind his actions? Of course there is, Wren said. You don't get HESOT-3 by accident. Someone built them. Someone trained them. Someone sent them into a war zone that already had alien signatures in the sky. They knew we were out here. They prepared these humans for us, whether they said it out loud or not. Vile deactivated the hollow entirely. The room dimmed. There is one more point to consider, they said. You all heard the human transmission. They touch your people, we start removing theirs from the sky. That is not a metaphor. That is a conditional promise. You believe they will act on it, Thalen said. If they confirm our interference, Vale replied. Yes. Silence stretched again. The board members shifted subtly, each alone with their calculations. At last, Vielle looked up. HESOT-3 survives, they said. Captain Callum Harris remains active. Their fleet recovers them. They return to their war, now with confirmation that we exist and that we are not untouchable. We can assume that somewhere in their archives there is now a file about us, just as we have a file about them. The question is not whether they will come for us. The question is under what circumstances. And your answer, Wren asked quietly. They will come, Vale said, when they believe that not coming is more dangerous than initiating contact on their terms. They are a species that moves toward threat, not away from it once they recognize it. We have moved from their periphery into their problem set. So we hide? Thalen asked bitterly. We crawl back into the dark and pretend this never happened? No, Vile said. We stop pretending they are a low-tier curiosity. We adjust. We watch. And we make certain that if we cross paths with HESOT-3 again, we do so with the understanding that we are meeting not a group of captives, but an arm of their civilization. Vial paused, then added, "And we remember that the last time we took them, we had to give them back." The recording chime sounded softly again, marking the end of the session. "Incident Review Board, Session 1 concluded," the system announced. "Summary classification?" it prompted. Vial considered, then spoke clearly for the record. "Classification, Human Contact Protocol Revision, Risk Elevation, from Contained Curiosity to Strategic Variable. Recommendation to all Directorates. Do not abduct trained humans." There was a moment of stillness after that, as if even the room needed time to absorb it. "Do you think they will know we have changed our stance?" Irix asked quietly. "They will know," Vale said, "because for them, the existence of this room, this review, this decision is already assumed. If they understand anything about us, they will know that we are capable of learning. And if we understand anything about them, it is that learning is the only reason they are still alive after all their wars." Ren made a low sound, almost a laugh, but not quite. "And after today," he said, "we are still alive after meeting HESOT-3. I suggest we also learn." Vial inclined his head. "Agreed. Adjourned." The lights dimmed a fraction as the recording ceased. Outside, ships moved in ordered lanes, and somewhere, far away, a human cruiser altered its course by a barely measurable degree, bringing its path a little closer to the part of space where rumors said the abductors lived. On its roster, a name flickered. Captain Callum Harris. In its internal network, a file was tagged. Entities responsible for Ridgefall incident. Future contact likely. In the Directorate's archive, another tag glowed beside the HESOT-3 incident record. Status: incomplete.